Have you ever wondered what's really running things behind the scenes on sites like Facebook, Wikipedia, or even your favorite blog? Well, there's a huge chance it's the tech we're exploring today, PHP. It's the quiet, powerful engine that runs a massive slice of the internet. Okay, let's get into it.
So if I asked you right now, what language powers most of the websites you visit every day, what would you guess? JavaScript maybe? Python? And yeah, those are absolutely massive. But one of the biggest, most foundational players in the game is the one we're going to focus on.
And that player is PHP, which stands for hypertext preprocessor. Now, the most important part of that definition is executed on the server. So what does that mean? It means all the heavy lifting, all the thinking, the database lookups, the logic, it all happens on the website's computer before the final page ever gets sent to your browser. The best analogy is a restaurant. PHP is the chef in the kitchen, preparing the perfect meal. JavaScript, on the other hand, often runs in your browser. That's more like the waiter adding a final sprinkle of Parmesan at your table.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with what PHP really is. Then we're going to write our very first bit of code. After that, we'll see how to store information, get a handle on the different kinds of data it uses, and finally, we'll put it all together to make PHP actually do something cool.
All right, let's start with that big picture. In the grand scheme of things, what is PHP's main job on the internet?
This mind map from Outsource Notes just nails it. The best way to think of PHP is as the brain behind a website. It's what separates a boring, static page that never changes from a dynamic website that feels alive and interactive. It's the magic that shows you a personalized welcome message or securely processes your payment information. It's the engine.
And this breaks it down perfectly. When you see generates dynamic page content, just think of a site saying, "Welcome back, John," instead of just welcome. Managing cookies? That's how a website remembers you're logged in, so you don't have to sign in every single time. And modifying data in a database? Well, that's the core of what happens every time you post a status update or leave a comment.
So now that we know what PHP does, let's take a look at how it's done. And don't worry, the basic rules of the road here are incredibly simple. It's time to get our hands dirty.
So how does a web server know which part of a file it's supposed to read and which part is just regular old HTML? It's all about these tags. Rule number 1, the absolute golden rule, is that all your PHP code has to live between this opening tag and this closing tag. This is basically a signal to the server that says, "Hey, pay attention, this part's for you."
And here you can see it, handwritten in the original notes. This is the Hello World program. It's the traditional first step for pretty much every programmer on the planet. See how it's tucked right inside a normal HTML page? You've got those PHP tags we just talked about with one simple command inside. This is where it all begins.
Now, if we strip away all the HTML, this is the core of it. This single line right here is a complete, working PHP program. It's a very simple instruction to the server, and that key instruction is the echo command.
So, echo is one of the most fundamental things in PHP. Its job is super simple. Take whatever you give it, in this case the text "Hello World," and just print it out onto the web page. It's your way of making the server talk. Okay, so we can make our page say things. That's cool. But to do anything useful, our programs need to be able to remember things. We need to store information. And that's where variables come into the picture.
The absolute easiest way to think about a variable is just as a labeled box. You can put some information inside the box, give that box a name, and then later on, you can just refer to it by its name to see what's inside. You could have a box labeled current_user where you store the name of the person who just logged in. That's a variable.
And as these nodes show us, the rule for creating a variable in PHP is dead simple. Every single one has to start with a $sign. So here, $f becomes a container for the number 5, and $y becomes a container for the text John. Easy as that.
Now, as we just saw, those containers can hold different kinds of information. You can have numbers or you can have text. In programming, these different kinds of information are called data types.
PHP has a few main data types you're going to use all the time. A string is just text, like a sentence or a name. An integer is a whole number, no decimals. A float is a number that does have a decimal point, like a price. A boolean is super simple. It's just true or false, a yes or no. And null just means the container is totally empty.
Let's see this in action real quick. So if we're storing a piece of text like hello inside a variable, that's a string.
And a whole number with no decimals,
Like 5? Yep, that's an integer.
What about a simple true or false value to answer a question? You got it? That's a boolean. The really cool thing is, you don't even have to tell PHP what type it is. It's smart enough to figure it out on its own just by looking at what you put inside the variable.
All right, so we've got the basic syntax down, we know how to store information, and we know about the different types of information we can store. So let's look at a few quick examples of how to put all of this to work.
This comparison from the notes brings up a really common question for beginners. What's the difference between echo and print? Well, the bottom line is, they do pretty much the exact same thing, but echo is just a tiny bit more efficient, and that's why you're going to see it used almost everywhere. Here's something you will do constantly: joining pieces of text together. In PHP, you do this using a period, not a plus sign like in some other languages. This is called concatenation. It's exactly how you would build a personalized message, like taking the string welcome and attaching a variable that holds the user's name.
And finally, PHP is absolutely packed with powerful, pre-built functions that do a ton of the hard work for you. Here's a simple math one, max, which just finds the largest number in a list. But honestly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds of these things that let you do everything from sending emails to resizing images, all with just a single line of code.
So really, what we've just covered are the absolute building blocks, the alphabet and the basic grammar of the PHP language. The big takeaway here is that you now have the foundational concepts that are used to build everything from a simple blog all the way up to a massive social network. They all start with these same pieces. So the only real question left is, what will you write?